Town Board, 2nd Ward, and Norma Cummings, also a candidate for Greece Town Board, the 4th Ward. During the September board meeting, disrespect for voters in the town of Greece hit a new low. During the community forum, the only opportunity that voters really have to publicly address the town board, Mr. Allberger shut down conversation. Because he didn't like what somebody had to say, he told him to be quiet and sit down. He bullied him into continuing what he's talking about. And when a next speaker got up to address the situation, Mr. Allberger did the same thing. He told him to sit down, that he was out of order. And what did our town board do? The all Republican members of the town board just sat there and they didn't do anything. They were totally silent. Last week, one of the neighborhood organizations in Greece invited candidates to come to address the voters, to share what they wanted to know about them and to take questions from the voters. All of the candidates from the Democratic Party were represented. However, none of the Republicans were there. Specifically, the town board members who represented people from that Dewey Avenue corridor, Shannon O'Keefe and Andrew Conlon, did not come to talk with the people they represent. We learned that their party boss, Bill Rylick, told them not to show up. He told all of the Republican candidates to stay away. And rather than have the respect for the voters and come to meet the people that they were elected to represent and whom they hope to continue to represent, they listened to their party boss. We urge the voters of Greece to take a close look at this all-Republican town board. Are they really the people that you want to represent you? People who will not let you speak, and people who will not take your questions? People who don't have enough respect to show up and share their thoughts with you or hear yours? That is not good government. It's not good democracy, and it is not the American way. The people of Greece deserve better. Voters deserve to be heard, and they deserve to be able to interact with their elected officials. We urge you to consider this. Don't reward people who disrespect you. When you go to the polls in November, vote for people who will be there to represent you. Vote for people who put you above their political party bosses. Wendy or Norma, would you like to add on? I think you have summed it up very well. Do you have any questions?
Yes, I'm new to, I'm covering for Megan, and I'm not sure who everyone is, so I'm going to have to ask you after this to get your names done. But real briefly, out of the 7 people that are here, how many of you are currently running for seats on the town board?
The 3 of us are running for town board. I'm running for 3rd Ward, Wendy running 4th Ward.
Okay. Can you go back over some of your displeasure with the Republican-led government?
Sure. Well, basically, we feel that when you have a government that's all one party, and especially a party that stands together on everything, so that there's not much, it takes away from the transparency of government. And I think that's one of the reasons that we wanted that all of us were running, was because we want to know what's going on. And the only time we can get that is if we're there and open it up. And
the other thing too is, in any board meeting, all you're ever going to get is what they're going to vote yes for. I don't think it's a constant unanimous vote all the time. So the only thing that comes before the meetings are items that they can vote yes for. Never any dissension. That's not correct. I mean, everybody can't agree with everything all the time.
There's never any discussion. There's never any questions of substance. If you look at the voting record since January 2010, when they all started this term, there have been 941 yes votes, not a single no. In in particular, during the last 2 board meetings, there is a public forum at the beginning of the meeting where people are invited to speak for 3 minutes with what they believe are concerns for the town of Greece. And Mr. Auberger didn't like what the speaker had to say. And he told him to just be quiet and sit down, that he was out of order. And he was totally disrespectful. And he bullied him into sitting down. And then when the next speaker came up, he didn't like what he had to say either, and he recessed the meeting in the middle of what he had to say. Then reconvened the meeting and spoke on top of and instructed the town clerk to speak on top of the speaker. I mean, what? This just total disrespect. Voters deserve to be heard. And they only get 3 minutes. You'd think even if he doesn't like what they have to say, you could at least give them 3 minutes. It's just, and then to have every single member of the board just sit there and watch it. None of them have the backbone to stand up to Mr. Auberger. And you see that in their votes and you see that in their behavior. And then to not even show up at a candidate's night because they're afraid to take questions from the people they represent, that their political boss told them don't show up. That was more important to them than the voters they represent. And that's our concern.
And one last question for me. I'm sorry, I didn't see I count 8 people.
Well, these are members of, these are vote supporters. Yeah, they're the supporters.
Okay. What would you like to have happen? What would you like to see the town board do with this community, with the open forum in the future?
Well, at the very least, I would like to see them allow people to speak. And
For the 3 minutes.
for the 3 minutes, at the very least. I mean, if they were like other towns, they would actually engage in conversation with people who come to speak to them, but they don't even do that. So that's what I'd like to see, that the town board to show some respect and some interest in what people from the town have to say. But more so, I want the voters of this town to realize what goes on in this building and recognize that the people that are sitting up there that are supposed to represent them put more care behind what their political boss has to say than they do behind what the voters have to say. And it's time to change. Greece deserves better government.
Are you planning on bringing these concerns in front of the board this evening?
I do.
Okay. Now, I know what happened in September. Do you think that the rules were violated, the town rules? Like in terms of how
Probably
you
the letter.
handle
It was the letter. It was not, what it said was he's allowed to do that, but it wasn't.
Certainly didn't follow program.
No.
I'm sorry?
Certainly didn't follow program. Here, it's really not allowed to help you.
Do you think it could have been handled differently or?
Well, you know, when all you do is give somebody 3 minutes a month to address the town board, it seems like you could just let that happen. You know, you could hold your breath probably for 3 minutes if you had to.
Try.
I mean, well, they shuffle papers, they look at the ceiling, you know, so they could just like, you know, do what it seems like they often do, is just totally ignore what's being said. But to tell somebody that you're out of order, we know you know how to read, sit down, we don't need to hear from you, you can't read what you want to read, you can't paraphrase, just sit down. And then when someone tries to explain their understanding of how a public meeting is supposed to act, to tell him he's out of order, to tell him to sit down, to recess the meeting, talk over people, that's just not acceptable in a democracy.
Your sign here says handled. What particular things are you thinking about when you write that?
Well, I should probably go in there, we're going to miss our opportunity.
Well, I guess we'll
And then we can talk some more after.
Sounds good.